Before we get started, I just want to say I don't have anyone moderating the chat today. And what would really be ideal when we get to the portion where you might want to ask some questions, I invite you to unmute yourself and to ask away. I don't know how comfortable you are with that, but since we're talking about teacher training and allowing yourself to be seen and heard, here's a great first step. Okay. And please remember, this is a very warm and welcoming community. It's funny how when we start to consider stepping into the role of the teacher, how it causes our insecurities to come flooding up and our judgments. And that's just really not what this is. This should be about in yoga. And so I want to speak to that. I want to just explain what it means to take the seat of the teacher and why that's important. And we can do a practice together this morning. In fact, we could even create a practice together if you wanted to, so you get a feel for that. And or at least we'll touch on that a little bit. And I do want to be of service to you. I want to make sure that I'm able to answer your questions. So a couple of things that are challenging is that we don't have a moderator in the chat. So if you're typing your questions away, I also can't see them because I don't have my reading glasses on. So I will put them on from time to time to check in and make sure I'm covering everything. But when we get to questions, it would be great if you could unmute yourselves. And the other thing I didn't realize when I scheduled this is that I also have to admit people one by one. So I'll be doing that for a little while. If you see my arm popping up and down to the computer, that's what I'm doing. Just to welcome everyone in so we can have this conversation. So whether you are interested in teaching or whether you simply want to study yoga more, I do want you to know you are in the right place. This is what this is all about. So the deep dive into yoga, the exploration of yoga, is yoga teacher training. That's the most comprehensive course. So because in a yoga teacher training course, you will study not only postures, that's like the very basic stuff, that you will study poses, breathing techniques, meditations. In this training, you study the chakra system, you study philosophy, and not just study. This isn't just about reading about it. This is an immersion. This is about experiencing the practice, deep in your body, getting into your bones, infusing your being, becoming yoga, right? So yoga isn't something that we study, at a distance or at arm's length. It's something that I say we become, right? It's a way of moving through the world. It's a way of being. So what does it mean to take the seat of the teacher? So first of all, teacher training is whether you decide to teach or you simply want to learn more for yourself, the path is the same. So if you're on that path, if you're doing this exploration, you might want to keep your mind open to teaching, because usually what happens is, something about the practice hooks you, and all of a sudden you want to practice more and more. And as you practice more, you're curious about what's happening. And so you want to learn more. And the more you learn, the more there's this desire to share. And that's what teaching is. It's simply teaching something you love. And if yoga has hooked you, if it's something that's become part of your life, you probably find yourself talking about it already quite a bit to your friends, to your family. It's just something that happens. Kelly's waving over there. It's something that happens quite naturally, right? And, making that decision to teach yoga it's not so much as a conscious decision, or even to study yoga. It's not so much as a conscious decision as it is a calling. Okay. So I know when I did and it wasn't even a class, when I did my first 15-minute yoga video, I think a lot of you have heard the story by now. I did one 15-minute VHS and I was hooked. I was like, I need to know what just happened. The the shift, the internal shift was so profound that I wanted to study right away. And that's what I learned immediately, was to study means to do a yoga teacher training. And I went through a whole process around that because I hadn't done any classes at the time. And so I had to do a little bit of fast talking to be accepted into a teacher training program, but I never looked back. And, you know, it did hook me. You know, what I said earlier, that you start to practice, and then there's this desire to learn, and then comes the desire to share. For me, the desire to share was immediate. And the reason was, when I did that 15-minute practice, the shift I felt, the internal shift, was so profound that I also had this flash of like, why didn't anybody tell me that things could be so much better by doing just these very simple practices? How something so simple could help me feel better so fast. I had a huge mindset shift when I started to practice yoga. And the biggest shift was understanding how much of our suffering is self-created. Something we don't really like to admit. So this is what we have to do in yoga. We have to drill down and get to truth. And it would be, for me, it's really exciting when yoga is about these conversations, because learning the poses, learning the breathing techniques, learning, you know, about the chakras and all that, that's so easy. That's simple. That could not be more simple, especially in the practice of Kundalini. This is the easiest style of yoga to teach because the movements are so basic. You know, what are some of the movements? Well, you might lift your arms up and shake them. You might rotate from your wrists. I mean, there's some very, very basic movements, right? So the pose side is simple. You know, many of those things are simple. What's really exciting about it is how you can work with yoga to awaken your Kundalini. And it really is time to get the truth out about Kundalini and demystify and take all the stigma away from this practice that is profound, is powerful, and it can create these, you know, huge shifts. For me, it was like I was living in the dark, that I was in a very dark place. And very quickly, just even in that 15 minutes, it's like, oh my goodness, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope. You know, it's not all dark anymore. And it was that fast. It was that fast. And so, I'm going all over the place because I have so much I want to share with you today. But if you are feeling this desire to explore it, it is more of a calling than a conscious decision when it comes to yoga. There is something calling you. So pay attention to that and realize how, you know, how much it can give you. And I just touched on that briefly about, you know, what it's here to do. All of us here are at different stages. When I signed up for my yoga training, I didn't even know there were different styles of yoga. This was way before there was yoga studios on every other block and so on and so forth. I didn't even know there were different styles. I just had this experience with a video, walked out my door, went to the only yoga teacher I knew. She happened to teach Kundalini. Ta-da, there I was. And, you know, in hindsight, I know I ended up in the right place. It is what suited my temperament. It was right for me. I wouldn't have had the patience at that point in time to do a hatha training or something slower. It just wasn't the right time for me for that practice. But I'll get to subsequent trainings in a minute. So no matter what style of yoga you have studied or aim to study, the goal, if you could call there being a goal to yoga, the aim of all yoga is to awaken to your Kundalini, which is your potential. It's what you're here to do. And that's only possible when you start to embrace who you are. And how do we embrace who we are? Well, we work on internal alignment, right? Many yoga styles will talk a whole lot about alignment of the physical body and the importance of that. But what we're primarily focused on in yoga is alignment on the inside, so that you're never going against your core values, so that you're living your truth. So you're living your destiny, you're living what your Kundalini is, your destiny. So my journey into teacher training happened very quickly because there was no doubt in my mind that I needed to dive into the deep end. And that was because I was in this profoundly dark place, saw the light, literally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And there was this need to share it because I thought, wow, there's other people out there just like me who are creating so much unnecessary drama in their life. And all they have to do is just take some simple steps to really wake up to what it is that's happening, to see the truth of what is happening in their life, to see that self-created drama, to see how they could get out of the dark. And it's been profound for me. I'm still excited about it almost 30 years later, because it's always different, because it is a journey of personal development and, you know, self-discovery. Now, when I speak to taking the seat of the teacher, there's something very significant that happens when you step into the role of the teacher. To step up, right? It means that you have to overcome your anxieties about being seen and heard. It means you have to overcome your fear around being a leader or a guide to others. It means that you have to overcome your self-judgment. It means that you have to overcome self-sabotage. It means that you have to drop your ego. You have to drop your ego and you have to drop your insecurities. And so these very same things that have to happen for you to step into the role of the teacher are the very same things that need to happen no matter what you aim to do in life. You know, whatever it is that you want to achieve, whatever it is you're going after is going to require all of that same stuff. And so it's very powerful. What stepping into the role of the teacher requires is self-mastery. It means mastering your mind and your emotions so you are no longer controlled by low-level thoughts, low-level beliefs, and low-level emotions, that we're not even conscious of these things driving our decisions. Now, if you've ever been in a practice and you're in the middle of a class and something really gets stirred up and you might have a flash of anger or a flash of sadness or some deep emotion comes up to the surface. When it's anger, very often you have this thought that you're just upset with the teacher because they're doing something you don't like. But what's happening is that whatever's going on in that moment in the class is triggering some anger that already exists within you. And so it's a cathartic process. Whatever it is that's unresolved is going to be triggered. And that's why we say Kundalini basically takes you to your limits, because it brings everything up so that you can get over it, so that you can be free of it, so you can step into the role of a teacher. And I'm using that terminology, but it's symbolic of stepping into the best version of yourself, to stepping into your destiny. It's the same thing all across the board. So stepping into the role of the teacher is mastering yourself, is self-mastery. Now, I mean, when you hear that, and because we're here for this conversation, obviously that mirrors what my course name is the Self-Mastery series. Now, the training is set up so that we pay very close attention to that personal mastery piece. And that's why the training is set up in this way, where there's actually two aspects to the training. We have this personal mastery piece where you just get to go in fully as a student and immerse yourself fully as a student and go through whatever it is that you need to go through. Whatever is meant to get stirred up is going to get stirred up. Whatever it is that you are ready to see, whatever it is that you are ready to reveal to yourself will be revealed. Now, every time you do the training, it's an entirely different experience because you reach a different place every time you go through it. And the thing is with the training, it's yours. You have lifetime access. So you can decide to do the coursework again and again and again. And if you take notes, if you're paying attention, you will experience that. It's never the same experience twice, unless you're doing it half-heartedly, right? I mean, there's always that option. You can just put play on, sit on your mat, scroll through Instagram a little bit while you kind of do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. You know, that's possible, but that's not why you're here for it. You guys aren't here for that. You guys are go-getters. You guys are, I know you guys, you want to go all in. It's a personality trait. A Kundalini trait is a personality trait. You want to do it 100% and then some. So it's an exciting journey, and the very foundational part of it is that personal development piece that you can do again and again and again. The other piece is what I started the conversation with is about that the skill set that you need to teach. You know, there's certain things that are very important for you to know, certain breathing techniques, different ways to keep the body safe, which poses correlate with chakras, which meditations would pair nicely with different classes, how to teach someone that's pregnant, you know, prenatal, postnatal, all of those things. That's an important skill set. But I've separated it out from the self-mastery piece so that when you're involved in the self-mastery piece, you're just swimming around in whatever is coming up for you. You just fully get to be a student. And those of you who already have a teaching certificate are probably really going to appreciate that, because once you have trained as a teacher, it is very hard to experience yoga in the same way again. Every time you go to a class as a teacher, you know, you're there with your notebook and pen, looking for something new to take back and share with your students. Is it a new pose, even a new song for your playlist, or so you're always detached from the experience. And for many teachers, because the self-mastery experience, the Kundalini experience is very different from what they usually teach, it's hard for their mind to grasp where we're going with this. So it doesn't take long for them to relax into the experience or allow themselves to drop into the experience. So finally, you get to be a student again, which I believe is essential, because that's what will keep us from burning out as teachers, that ability to go in and you know, and do that inner work that we need. And it will not be the same each time you do it. Each time you do it, if you're dedicated to it, it will be a different experience. So the tools and techniques piece is where you sit up and pay a little more attention. You get your notebook out and your pen, and we start creating things, because in this Kundalini training, you learn how to create your own kriyas. A kriya is your yoga sequence that's produced to create a particular effect. Okay. So those of you who have had some awareness of Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, I want you to know that this is not what that is. 99%, this is not, this statistic is not a guaranteed statistic, but I hazard to guess that about 99% of the Kundalini yoga classes that you go out there and take are Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, which means no matter where you go in the world, no matter who is teaching you, you are going to experience the exact same classes. There are a series of sequences that were recorded starting in 1969 for the period of his life that were then published and shared. And that's what just about every single Kundalini yoga teacher will teach you. And I will show you those sets. I will share them with you, and I will explain how I use them as a jumping off point to what I've created for you. Okay. And I will show you how to create your own classes. And, you know, if you don't want to create your own classes, you know, you can always share from the library of classes that you're going to receive from me. On our enrollment page, it says that you receive 79 classes. And I just realized it's more like 84 classes right now, because I just uploaded another one the other day. And, you know, that every time there's something new being offered, it's going to be uploaded into your course curriculum. So you're going to see some minor updates year to year, some new classes, some new worksheets, some new offerings. So, so you can use any of those 84 classes and share them with your students, or take those classes, pull them apart, and create something of your own. The possibilities are endless. So you have a very, very rich library to work with in the course. And of course, you have all the other things that you should be receiving. You have you have an in-depth course manual. You will be taught meditations. You will be taught classes. You'll be taught about the chakra system, what poses relate to what chakras, and then how to put it all together. So those of you, okay, so I want to decode a little bit the language around yoga teacher training, because that can be a little bit confusing. So I don't want to assume that those of you here already know what the Yoga Alliance is, or what we mean by 200-hour versus 300-hour. Some of you already know a lot about it, so I'm not going to over explain things, but these are the basics that you need to know if you want to take this particular journey to teach. A 200-hour yoga teaching certificate is what the Yoga Alliance requires for you to be able to teach. Now, that's not 200 haphazard hours. It can't be, I took 200 hours with one person, or sorry, 50 hours with one person, another 30 hours with someone else, another 20 with someone else, and I put together my own 200 hours. That's not the way it works. It has to be a 200-hour certificate, which is what, when you look on the enrollment page where it says accelerated self-mastery plus yoga teacher training, that's the option on the right-hand side of the page. That is a complete 200-hour system of training. That gives you your 200-hour internationally recognized yoga teacher certification. Now, you might not know what Yoga Alliance is, or you might not even care, but I think it's significant that whoever you train with has registered, their course has been approved by Yoga Alliance, because Yoga Alliance is our governing body. They check that the trainer, that would be me, has met certain standards. And even Raquel, who you will meet if you haven't met her already, who facilitates a lot of our live calls and is an integral part of the course, she also has her registration. She's also been approved through Yoga Alliance to share this work. So whoever you decide to train with, make sure that they have met a certain level of standards. Okay. Is it a perfect system? No, but it's what exists at this point in time. So we should at least be looking for that. Now, that's your 200-hour. There are some of you here that start reading about 300-hour and want to skip right to 300-hour. It's like, oh, let's skip over this 200-hour and go right to a 300-hour training. It doesn't work that way. 200-hour is what you start with. And then every training you do after that builds towards another certificate of a separate 300 hours. So my 200-hour training consists of the self-mastery plus what I'm calling on the enrollment page, yoga teacher training, or some of you here who've done self-mastery know it as the foundations course. That's the skills course. So personal development plus skills makes 200-hour. Done. Then I have a whole lot of other courses that are available to you. Now, someone who's already done a 200-hour can certainly learn to teach Kundalini by signing up for just that skills portion of my training. And you're absolutely welcome to do that. And I can share that link with you. And I'll share some links before we log off. But, you know, that's an option. You could just do the 60-hour. The downside of just doing the 60-hour is that you don't get that huge library of classes. You do get 10 modules of different classes that you can use as building bones for, you know, building blocks as the bones of your future classes, but you don't get these 84 classes. So that's a significant difference. And the other difference is you don't get to go on that deep personal journey. Now that's not to say that if you're doing the training, the skills piece, you're not going to experience personal shifts. You definitely will. And same with when you're doing the self-mastery training, you're still going to, you know, pick up different skills and different tools and techniques. If you're able to do the whole package, if that's ever a consideration, now is the time of the year to consider it, because there is a huge savings on it. In fact, it's, you know, depending on how you want to register, whether payment plan or pay in full, you can save up to $2,500. It's only offered once a year. Those of you who are on my list know, because I've been sending you so many emails, you know how long it takes me to explain all of this, you know, all of this coursework to you. So the reason we do this big savings at the start of the year is because I want to spend my time and effort actually on the coursework with you. And I don't want to spend weeks upon weeks, several times a year, just talking about the program. I want to be immersed in it with you. So it really is a one-time only chance to get that, that full package for up to $2,500 off. Now, something I touched on, and I'm just going to stress it again. This is, as far as I know, it is the only training that teaches you how to create your own kriyas, your own exercise sets, your own sequences, as you would say, in a different style of yoga. Okay. So this is the only Kundalini training, as far as I'm aware of, that does that. Why that is at the end, there's many reasons, but at the end of my very first training with Kundalini, there was something that didn't sit well with me, and it had to do with the amount of time that we were working with the physical body. Now, there was this incredible experience, you know, in terms of meditation and the chakra system and all the inner work, but I wasn't satisfied with the level of training that we received on keeping the body safe. And you're going to see what I mean when we go to the traditional Kundalini kriyas and look at them. I think it'll become very obvious to you what I'm talking about. So as soon as I finished my first training, I went and I signed up for a training with a Iyengar yoga teacher, which is so opposite from what Kundalini is. You know, it could not be more opposite. It was very detail oriented, very slow, very controlled, but very important for me to have that foundation, because when I finished, I didn't feel confident that I could keep someone safe throughout the class. So I just want you to know that when I create the kriyas for you, when we sit down to do the work together, I do take that aspect very seriously, although it feels completely different than, you know, these slow and controlled instructions you get in a hatha class or an Iyengar yoga class. But that also has to do with the simplicity of the postures. So we'll be talking all about that. Couple of other things to note is just that this course, all of this coursework was put together, you know, well before COVID. This wasn't a reaction to COVID where I started filming live classes and throwing it online. All of the course curriculum is pre-recorded so that you have good quality audio and video. Okay, and so but we also have, in addition to that, we also have these opportunities to get together in this meeting style, which I will open it up so you guys can ask questions. So it's not just a monologue today. You know, we have these opportunities to get together live so that we can interact. You can ask questions and we can address anything that needs to be addressed around the training. Sometimes I get asked about beginner level and Kundalini. Kundalini is an all levels practice. So when I teach, I tend to teach in a way that challenges a little bit, because you can always, you know, you can always reduce the number of repetitions. You can always reduce the length of time you do a pose. But I want to show you, you know, what is possible for you. And for most of us, we are capable of far more